I was halfway through my Sunday chicken and rice soup when I saw it. A long, jet-black strand floating like some tragic mermaid across the surface of my bowl. At 6:42 p.m., in the warm yellow light of my New Jersey kitchen, I froze with the spoon halfway to my lips. My son, Ryan, glanced up from his Starbucks cup. My daughter-in-law, Madison, widened her eyes so dramatically she looked like she was auditioning for Broadway. "Oh my God, Grace," she gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. "Is that your hair again?" She said, "Your hair, the way some people say biohazard." My own hair is silver, soft and short, has been for years. This was black, long, glossy, and could have doubled as Wi-Fi cable. I stared at it, then at her. She immediately lifted her phone, flipping the camera to selfie mode. "Family dinner gone wrong," she narrated to her followers, angling her iPhone just right. "Poor mom had another shedding incident." Another? My eyebrow twitched so hard it nearly left my face. I swallowed my pride along with the lump in my throat. "That isn't mine," I said quietly. Madison blinked twice, fake innocence level 100. "Oh? Well, maybe it drifted from somewhere." She looked around the kitchen like a hair ghost had wandered in. I took a slow breath. I wasn't going to cry in front of her. Not again. Ryan pushed back his chair awkwardly. "Mom, maybe you should, tie your hair when you cook? Just to be safe?" There it was, the first cut. I nodded, even though a part of me cracked inside. "Sure, honey." Madison flashed a sympathetic smile so sharp it could slice tomatoes. "Don't worry, Grace. We'll make sure everything stays hygienic." She said it sweet. Too sweet. Like Splenda-coated venom. While clearing the plates, Madison leaned toward Ryan, quiet but not quiet enough for a 68-year-old widow with good hearing and terrible luck. "She really shouldn't be living alone," Madison whispered. "All this stress, what if she forgets to wash things properly? What if the house gets worse? A retirement home near Manhattan might be better." My hands froze in the dishwater at 7:05 p.m. That was the second cut. I pretended I didn't hear. I kept rinsing bowls like a machine, letting the warm water hide the tremble in my fingers. I've been alone since my husband passed. I let them move in to help me. But lately I felt more like the clutter in my own home. When they went upstairs, I stayed in the kitchen. The clock hummed softly. I sat at the table and stared at the bowl where the hair had been. And then, something shifted. I noticed the trash bag Madison had tossed earlier. On top was a receipt for hair extensions from a fancy salon in Newark. Purchased yesterday. My eyes narrowed. I reached into the trash, pulled out the packaging, examined the color. Jet black. Silky, identical. At 7:12 p.m., my suspicion turned into confirmation. That hair didn't drift. It was planted. A quiet laugh escaped me, bitter but real. "All right," I whispered to myself. "If you want a problem, sweetheart, you just created one." A knock tapped gently on my back door. I nearly jumped. It was Leo Carver, my 55-year-old neighbor, holding a small Amazon box under his arm. "Got your package by mistake," he said, smiling under the porch light. "You okay? You look like you just solved a crime." I forced a smile. "Maybe I did." He chuckled. "Well, if you ever need backup, I'm next door trying to fix my Kindle. Again." He walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a spark of something warm I hadn't felt in years. I looked back at the soup bowl, then at the hair extension packaging. My chest stopped aching. My eyes stopped burning. Because somewhere between 6:42 and 7:15 p.m., a new truth settled in. I might be old, I might be lonely, but I am not stupid. And tomorrow evening, Madison was going to learn that the hard way. By 8:10 a.m. the next morning, the house smelled like fresh coffee and fake politeness. I walked downstairs slowly, knees creaking, dignity intact, just in time to see Ryan placing a Starbucks cup on the counter for me. "Got your usual, Mom," he said gently. I smiled. Small gestures from your own child hit differently, especially when you're clinging onto them like a ledge. Madison, meanwhile, was filming herself pouring cereal into a designer bowl. Not eating it, just pouring it. A performance breakfast. "Good morning, Mom," she chirped. "Sleep well?" She said Mom, the way people say tax audit. I took a sip of coffee at 8:12 a.m. "Just fine," I answered. "Though I did dream of hairballs." Her smile flickered. Only for half a second, but enough to tell me her brain rebooted in panic. She recovered quickly, sweeping her glossy black hair into a ponytail. "Anyway," she said brightly, "Ryan and I were talking. Maybe we should look into better living arrangements for you. Something with full care, activities, age-appropriate stimulation. Age-appropriate stimulation? I blinked. Madison, I watch crime documentaries. I think I'm plenty stimulated. Ryan choked on his cereal. I sipped my coffee like a queen. Madison didn't laugh. She never laughs when she's not in control. She slid her iPhone across the counter. On the screen was a luxury elder care facility brochure. High-gloss Manhattan skyline in the background, smiling seniors who probably weren't allowed to chew unsupervised. It's just an option, she insisted. Your health is important. My health is fine, I replied. My patience, though, is terminal. At 8:20 a.m., Madison's phone buzzed. She walked toward the hallway, whispering harshly to whoever was on the other end. For a woman who lives for social media, she forgets that walls have ears, especially mine. I moved quietly, padding toward the slightly ajar door. Yes, I put the hair there, she hissed. No, he didn't freak out as much as I wanted, but he's halfway convinced his mother is slipping. Tonight, I'll try something else. If she resists the retirement home talk again, I'll push the hygiene concern angle. Ryan's too soft to fight me on it. My stomach twisted, not because of the plotting. Not because she used my son's softness as a weapon, but because she sounded excited, like this was her Super Bowl. Just then, I heard footsteps upstairs. I scurried back to the living room like a guilty teenager sneaking in at curfew. I dropped onto the couch and grabbed the nearest object, a random Amazon box I'd been meaning to recycle, to pretend I was just tidying. Ryan came down at 8:27 a.m. Mom, you okay? Perfectly fine, I said, hugging the Amazon box like it was a therapy pet. Madison followed, radiating sunshine so artificial it needed a warning label. We're heading out. Got errands. She kissed Ryan's cheek, then mine, with the enthusiasm of someone kissing a tax receipt. When the door finally shut behind them, the house fell silent. A heavy, aching silence that tugged at places in my chest I'd tried to ignore for months. My husband had been dead 5 years, but the loneliness felt freshly sharpened. By 8:40 a.m., I sat at the table, tracing the rim of my coffee cup, whispering to the empty kitchen, is this what getting old means? Becoming disposable? A soft knock broke the moment. I opened the back door to find Leo again. Same worn denim jacket, same gentle smile. You left this in my mailbox, he said, handing me a small envelope. Or maybe your mail is trying to date me. Hard to tell. I laughed, actually laughed, a real one. Come in. I could use company. He stepped inside, looking around my kitchen with warm eyes. Something on your mind? I hesitated. Then, at 8:46 a.m., I told him everything. Every hair, every whisper, every plan to relocate me like unwanted furniture. When I finished, Leo let out a low whistle. Well, he said, if she thinks you're going quietly, she picked the wrong grandma. I snorted. You think so? He nodded. Grace, you're sharp, and you're tougher than you give yourself credit for. Let me help, even if it's just fixing a camera or being moral support. My heart warmed, my eyes stung. Not from pain this time, but from being seen. At 8:52 a.m., a fragile, fierce thought bloomed inside me. Maybe I wasn't disposable after all. By 2:05 p.m. that afternoon, the sun was hitting my backyard just right. The kind of gentle autumn light that makes even overgrown grass look poetic. I was trimming my hydrangeas, trying to look busy instead of emotionally spiraling, when I heard Leo's voice from the other side of the fence. You know, he said, if you keep staring at those flowers like that, they'll start gossiping. I looked up. He was leaning against his side of the fence, wearing work gloves and a smile warm enough to melt my arthritis. Just thinking, I replied. That's dangerous for people our age, he teased. I pulled a muscle last week from thinking too hard about my taxes. I burst out laughing, an ungraceful, snort-filled laugh I hadn't heard from myself in years. At 2:11 p.m., my shears slipped and hit the fence board. A chunk of wood cracked. Oh no, I gasped. Leo stepped over immediately. Let me take a look. He crouched down, inspecting the damage with the seriousness of a surgeon. Grace, this fence is older than TikTok. It's a miracle it didn't just collapse from watching you trim. I'll take that as a compliment? He winked. Take it however helps your ego. He pulled out a small toolkit. Apparently he walks around like a one-man Home Depot and began fastening the loose board. As he worked, my phone buzzed at 2:19 p.m. A text from Madison, we'll be home around 6. Don't cook anything messy, we'll just do takeout tonight. The quotation marks around messy were doing Olympic-level gymnastics. Leo glanced over my shoulder. Yikes, she texts like a supervillain who shops at Sephora. That's accurate. He finished repairing the board and stood up, brushing off his hands. Listen, you told me what she did. You told me what she plans. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know, I admitted. I don't want a war. Grace, he said gently, you're already in one, you just didn't declare it. I went quiet. The wind rustled the trees behind us. At 2:24 p.m. I heard myself whisper, I just want my son back. Leo softened. Then you need proof. Real proof. Something undeniable. I frowned. Proof of what? He tapped the top of the fence. Does your house still have that old security camera system? The one your husband installed? I blinked. It's been off for years. But it's still there? Yes. He crossed his arms. Then maybe we turn it back on. A spark lit inside me. Small, bright, dangerous. Leo, I said slowly, are you suggesting surveillance? He shrugged. I'm suggesting clarity. Cameras don't lie. Your daughter-in-law seems to. I couldn't help it. I cackled. I'm 68 years old. I should be knitting, not running covert ops. Hey, it's never too late for a career change. My mom started yoga at 70 and she can now embarrass people half her age. At 2:31 p.m., I felt something shift inside me. Courage, maybe. Or just the realization that I wasn't powerless. Can you help me set it up? I asked. Of course, he said. Anything to protect a beautiful woman. I blinked. Are you flirting with me? Depends, he said. Did it work? I swatted his arm, trying not to smile too hard. By 3:05 p.m. he had climbed the small step ladder in my kitchen and started checking the old camera brackets. You know, he said as he tightened a screw, if Madison knew I was here helping you right now, she'd probably call the police. Let her, I muttered. The only illegal thing happening in this house is whatever she's planning. He laughed so hard he almost dropped the screwdriver. At 3:22 p.m., he connected the old system to a new power adapter he happened to have in his truck. The small red indicator light blinked, then turned solid. My heart pounded. It works? Oh, it works, he said. If someone tries to pull another hair stunt, we'll catch every strand of it. For the first time in months, maybe years, a feeling bloomed in me that I'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. Not because of the camera, not because of the plan, but because at 3:25 p.m., standing in my kitchen with Leo tightening the last screw, I realized something simple and terrifying. I was no longer facing this alone. And that was the beginning of everything. By 9:14 p.m., the house had finally gone quiet. Ryan was upstairs showering. Madison was in their bedroom editing content, which usually meant adding filters until her face looked like it was broadcast from Mars. And I was pretending to read on my Kindle, but my eyes kept flicking toward the small silver light on the kitchen camera Leo had reactivated. A tiny red glow. A promise. At 9:27 p.m., footsteps creaked down the stairs. I looked up from my Kindle, expecting Ryan. But it was Madison. She was dressed in silky pajamas that probably cost more than my monthly utility bill. Her hair was down, long, black, glossy. The exact hair she had accused me of shedding. She walked straight into the kitchen, but didn't turn on the lights. Suspicious. Even the refrigerator paused humming, as if curious. I held my breath. Madison opened the pantry, rummaged around, then pulled out a plastic storage bag. She held it up toward the faint light coming from the hallway. Inside the bag was a thick bundle of hair extensions. My jaw tightened. My heart thumped. Then she did something that made me nearly choke on air. She smiled at the hair like it was a co-conspirator, and she spoke, out loud, exactly where the camera could hear her. Round 2, she whispered, amused. Let's make it convincing this time. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stop myself from gasping so loud that New Jersey would hear it. She wasn't just framing me, she was enjoying it. Madison placed the bag on the counter, grabbed one long strand and carefully wrapped it around the ladle that hung by the stove. My soup ladle. The audacity could power the Manhattan grid. Unbelievable, I whispered. Just then, the kitchen floor creaked under my foot. Madison's head snapped up. For a split second, our eyes met through the shadows. Grace, she called sweetly. Are you awake? I pretended to yawn loudly. Just came for water. She stuffed the hair back into the bag so fast she nearly dislocated her shoulder. Oh, I was just reorganizing. Reorganizing the ladles? I asked. She laughed, way too high-pitched. Just being helpful. Sure, and raccoons do taxes. At 9:34 p.m. she hurried back upstairs, bag in hand. I watched her go, my chest tightening with something between anger and disbelief. And then, suddenly, I snorted. A real laugh. Sharp, ugly, completely involuntary. Because as awful as Madison was, she had the strategic intelligence of a broken toaster. She had no idea the camera was on. No idea she'd just been caught committing culinary sabotage. And I knew that tomorrow, she would dig her own grave deeper. At 10:05 p.m., I heard the familiar knock at the back door. I opened it to find Leo holding a small tool case. "You're visiting late," I said softly. "Wanted to check the camera system," he whispered. "Make sure everything's saved properly." He came inside quietly. I showed him the footage on my laptop. Madison, the hair, the whisper. As he watched, his eyebrows climbed so high they nearly merged with his hairline. "Oh my God," he murmured. "She's creative. Evil, but creative." I folded my arms. "She's committed. I'll give her that." Leo shook his head. "Grace, this is more than just betrayal. This is harassment, emotional abuse. You realize that?" I swallowed hard. "I know." He sat across from me, voice gentler. "You deserve better than this, and you deserve to stay in your own home without being treated like a problem." I looked down at my hands. They were trembling again. Not from fear this time, from something like anger, backed by strength. At 10:22 p.m., Leo placed his hand over mine. Warm, grounding. "You're not alone," he said quietly. I lifted my head and met his eyes. A spark ignited. Small, dangerous, alive. "I think," I said softly, "it's time Madison learns who she's messing with." He grinned. "Now that's the spirit." Before he left, he glanced at the camera one last time. "Grace," he said, "when this is all over, do you want to go somewhere? Dinner, maybe? I know a place by the river with good music." My heart tripped over itself. "Ask me again when she stops planting hair in my cookware," I teased. He saluted. "Deal." He slipped out the door at 10:30 p.m., leaving me alone with the glow of the camera light. I wasn't scared. I wasn't confused. For the first time in months, I was ready. By 11:08 a.m. the next day, I was in the living room folding laundry, slowly, intentionally, the way old people do everything when they're thinking about war. Madison swept in wearing a cream blazer and heels she absolutely couldn't walk in, clicking across the hardwood like an injured horse. "Grace," she called brightly. "We have a special meeting today." I blinked. "A meeting?" "Yes." Madison clasped her hands like she was hosting a game show, "with a financial advisor, about your future." My stomach tightened. Ryan appeared behind her at 11:11 a.m., slightly frazzled, holding a folder and a MacBook Air. "Mom, it's just to explore some options," he reassured. "Nothing decided." "Options," I repeated. "Am I buying a yacht? Because that would be a fun option." Madison ignored the joke. She was on a mission, and subtlety had died somewhere between her eyeliner and her ego. At 11:30 a.m., a young man in a navy suit arrived. He introduced himself as Travis from Silver Pine Financial, but he looked about 12 and smelled strongly of ambition and cologne bought on clearance. "Mrs. Miller," he said, shaking my hand too enthusiastically, "I'm here to help your family plan long-term care solutions." I smiled politely. "And I'm here to see how long I can tolerate this conversation." Ryan coughed to hide a laugh. Madison shot him a death glare. Travis opened his laptop at 11:37 a.m., launching into a slideshow that looked like it was designed by someone who hated fonts. "Now, as seniors age," he said, "their ability to manage property decreases." I raised a hand. "I managed to bury a husband, refinance this house twice, and survive raising a teenage boy. I think I can still manage a dishwasher." Ryan rubbed his face, torn between pride and panic. Travis continued, unfazed. "There are excellent retirement communities just minutes from Manhattan. Luxury amenities, daily activities, chef-prepared meals." "I can prepare meals," I interrupted. "I make a mean pot roast." Madison let out a fake laugh sharp enough to file nails. "Grace, we just want what's best for you." And right then, at 11:44 a.m., her phone buzzed. She turned it over, and I caught a glimpse of the message preview. "Make sure she signs today. The sooner she's out, the better." I didn't know who she was texting. A friend? Her mother? Satan? But the grip she had on Ryan's arm told me everything. This wasn't concern. This was eviction wrapped in glitter. At 11:50 a.m., Travis slid a stack of papers toward me. Just initial here to let us explore the option of selling the house, he said cheerfully. Madison leaned in. Don't worry, it's not binding. I smiled sweetly. Sweetheart, I said, that's what men say before they ruin your credit. Ryan choked on air this time. Madison glared daggers. Grace, please, don't make this difficult. I picked up the pen, clicked it, hovered it over the line, and then put it down. No. The room froze at 11:53 a.m. Even the cat stopped walking. Madison blinked. No, what? No, I repeated calmly. I'm not signing anything. Not until I review my late husband's will and speak to my attorney. Her face twitched in a way Botox cannot fix. Attorney? She squeaked. Yes, I said with venom dipped in honey. The one who handled all our estate documents. The ones you've apparently never bothered to read. Ryan looked confused. Mom, we were just trying to… Ryan, I said gently, I love you. But if you want to discuss my future, it will happen when your wife isn't trying to speedrun my funeral. Leo would have been proud of that line. Travis closed his laptop very quickly. All right, sounds like you need more time, he said, practically running out the door by 12:01 p.m. Madison stormed toward the kitchen. I followed. She whirled around at 12:04 p.m., eyes blazing. You're making this impossible. You're old, alone, and stubborn. This house is too much for you. And yet, I said softly, the only person causing a mess here isn't me. She opened her mouth to retaliate, but the kitchen camera blinked above her head. She didn't notice, not yet. Instead, she hissed, if you won't leave willingly, I'll find another way. My smile was cold enough to refrigerate leftovers. Oh, honey, I whispered, you already started. She stormed upstairs. When she was gone, I exhaled, from relief, from fear, from rage. At 12:15 p.m., I sat alone at the kitchen table, and I made a promise to myself. I would not be pushed out of my own life. Not today. Not ever. By 3:42 p.m., I was sitting in my late husband's old study, a room that smelled like cedar, dust, and unresolved memories. Sunlight streamed through the blinds in thin gold lines, landing on the stack of documents I'd pulled from the file cabinet. The will, the mortgage paperwork, insurance, all the papers that younger people think magically organize themselves until someone dies. At 3:51 p.m., I dialed the number of our old attorney, Mr. Whitaker. He picked up on the second ring. Grace? My goodness, it's been years. Hi, Whit, I said softly. I need to review some things. About the house. His tone immediately shifted. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I didn't ask why he sounded urgent. I didn't have to. By 4:26 p.m., Whitaker was sitting across from me, adjusting his glasses like he was preparing to read me my horoscope. Let's start with the will, he said, unfolding the familiar thick document. I breathed in, bracing myself. He read aloud, calmly, carefully. Your husband left the house entirely in your name. Sole ownership, full rights. No one, not even Ryan, can force a sale while you are alive. My throat tightened. Madison's plan wasn't cruel, it was also extremely uninformed. And this, he continued, sliding over another document, is the medical and financial power of attorney you signed years ago. It gives full control to you, not your son, certainly not your daughter-in-law. At 4:33 p.m., something inside my chest cracked. Not from hurt, but from validation. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't disposable. I wasn't at the mercy of a 33-year-old influencer with no respect for shampoo or morality. But then Whitaker leaned back, fingers steepled. I'm guessing Madison doesn't know any of this. No, I whispered. She thinks she can push me out. And Ryan? I hesitated. Long enough that he understood before I said it. He doesn't defend me, I admitted. He avoids conflict. He lets her steer everything. Whitaker sighed. Silence can be more painful than the betrayal itself. I stared at the carpet. Yes, it can. At 4:47 p.m., the front door opened. Ryan's voice drifted through the hallway. Mom? Madison's grabbing something upstairs. We came back early. Great. Just what I needed. Emotional crowd control. Ryan poked his head into the study. Oh, you're with your lawyer? Whitaker just raised a hand. Old friends catching up. Ryan smiled politely, then noticed the will on the desk. Are you worried about something? I looked him in the eyes for the first time in weeks. Should I be? He blinked. Hard. Mom, Madison's just trying to help. No, I interrupted quietly. She's trying to make me someone else's problem. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. And that silence cut deeper than any insult, any hair, any plan to move me out. I swallowed the lump in my throat. At 4:52 p.m., I whispered. When your father died, I held this house together while my heart was falling apart. Now you're telling me you can't even tell your wife to stop humiliating me? Ryan's eyes reddened. Mom, it's complicated. Love isn't complicated, I said softly. Loyalty isn't complicated. Grief isn't complicated. What she's doing is complicated. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Upstairs, Madison's heels clicked like a countdown clock. Whitaker stood, gathering the documents. I think we're done here, Grace. I'll draft an updated protection agreement for you. It's time you stop being polite and start being safe. Safe. What a strange thing to be afraid of needing at 68. After he left, Ryan hovered awkwardly at the doorway. Mom, is there anything I can do? I laughed, not loudly, not kindly, a small, brittle laugh. Yes, I said. You can listen. He nodded slowly. Okay, I'm listening. I lifted my chin. Your wife is staging things, manipulating you, lying. I have proof. He paled. What proof? I'll show you soon, I said. But first ask yourself why I needed to get proof in the first place. Before he could answer, Madison called downstairs. Ryan, can you help me pick an outfit for dinner? Something classy? He squeezed my arm weakly and went upstairs. At 5:19 p.m., I sank back into the study chair. My husband's old leather seat creaked under me. The weight of grief, the weight of betrayal, the weight of being forgotten by the one person you raised to protect you. I closed my eyes, and I promised myself, if Madison wanted a war, she would get one. A quiet, devastating, elegantly executed war. Because I wasn't fighting just for my home anymore. I was fighting for the pieces of myself she thought she could erase. By 7:02 p.m., Madison had dragged Ryan to some networking dinner, which was her term for posting photos in dim restaurants and pretending they were paid collaborations. The house finally exhaled. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea and the camera footage open on my laptop. Every frame, every whisper, every smirk. The evidence sat there like a loaded weapon. At 7:08 p.m. the back door knocked. 2 taps, then 1. Leo's rhythm. I let him in. Evening, Grace, he said, brushing off his jacket. You look like someone about to bury a body. Should I be concerned? I gestured to the laptop. Depends on how you feel about watching a grown woman sprinkle hair like Parmesan. He leaned over the screen, and then he burst into laughter so loud I slapped his arm. Stop it, I hissed, but I was laughing too. It's not funny. Oh, it's hysterical, he chuckled. She handles hair like it's a seasoning. What is she, the Salt Bay of sabotage? I nearly spit my tea out. At 7:15 p.m., I paused the frame where Madison was wrapping hair around my ladle. Leo shook his head. Grace, this isn't just petty. This is pathological. I looked down at my hands. She wants me out. Completely. And you're not going, he said firmly. I took a breath. No, I'm not. He sat beside me. So what's the plan? And that was the moment, the exact second, the idea fully bloomed. A gift. A box. A reveal. Quiet. Elegant. Devastating. A family dinner, I said. I'll cook. I'll be sweet. I'll thank Madison for her concern. And then I'll give her a present. Leo grinned slowly. A Renaissance-style ambush. I like it. I stood, opening a drawer to pull out a beautifully patterned gift box I'd been saving for something special. Apparently that something special was vengeance. At 7:28 p.m., Leo examined it. Pretty box, I agreed. Deadly contents. Grace, he said, raising an eyebrow. If you start a crime syndicate, I want in. I laughed so hard I had to sit down. It's not deadly, just clarifying. What are you putting inside? Evidence, I murmured. The camera footage, copies of the will, proof of her lying, proof of her trying to move me out. And your signature dramatic flair, he added. Obviously, I said. We worked together, me organizing documents, him checking the USB drive, both of us giggling like teenagers plotting a prank at summer camp. At 7:41 p.m., I taped the box closed and ran my hand over the ribbon. My heart thudded. My palms tingled. This is insane, I whispered. No, Leo said gently. This is justice. He stood and crossed the kitchen, opening the fridge. Do you have anything to eat? I skipped lunch. I blinked. Why are you opening my fridge like you live here? Manifesting, he said. I nearly dropped the USB. He pulled out leftover pie, held it up. Permission? Yes, I said, laughing. Help yourself. He cut himself a slice, then paused. By the way, he added casually, that dinner I asked you to go to, the offer still stands. I froze. Leo? No pressure, he said quickly. You're dealing with a lot, but I want you to know, if you ever want company that's not trying to evict you, I'm right next door. I stared at him. This wasn't pity, this wasn't charity. It was interest, genuine, warm, unexpected. My cheeks heated. Good God, at 68, I was blushing. Someone hand me a fan and an oxygen tank. At 7:55 p.m. I whispered, ask me again after the dinner. His smile spread slow and wide. It's a date. He cleaned up the crumbs, blessed this man, and headed to the back door. Before he left, he nodded at the gift box on the table. Grace, he said softly, whatever happens at that dinner, you're taking your life back. When he walked out at 8 p.m., the house didn't feel lonely. It felt charged, alive, ready. And so was I. That night before bed, I placed the gift box on my dresser. Tomorrow Madison would unwrap it, and finally, she'd see exactly what I'd been seeing all along. By 6:02 p.m., the house smelled like roasted garlic, lemon butter, and the kind of peace that comes right before a storm destroys the coastline. I stood in the kitchen, wearing my best navy sweater, the one that makes me feel like I have my life together, even when I absolutely do not. On the counter, a neatly arranged spread of chicken piccata, roasted potatoes, and a salad so beautiful Madison would accuse it of using filters. At exactly 6:10 p.m., the front door opened. Mom, something smells amazing, Ryan called. Madison followed, balancing a shopping bag and her ego. I didn't know we were having a fancy dinner, she said, looking around with fake surprise. Did something happen? Oh yes, I smiled. Something wonderful is happening. Leo would have applauded that line. Madison blinked twice, her processing speed limited when situations weren't centered around her. I led them to the dining room, where I'd set the table with actual cloth napkins. The gift box sat innocently in the center, white, gold ribbon, elegant, lethal. At 6:18 p.m. we sat. Madison immediately lifted her iPhone. Let me take a quick video. I held up a hand. No phones at the table. She smiled, but her left eye twitched, always a good sign she was about to snap. Ryan shrugged and put his phone away. I like this, he said. Feels normal. Normal. If only he knew what was about to hit. We ate. The food was good, thank God, because nothing ruins revenge like dry chicken. At 6:32 p.m., Madison dabbed her lips with her napkin and said sweetly, I hope you're not stressed anymore, Grace. I've been thinking a lot about your future. She said it like she was talking about a stray dog she found behind Target. Oh, I've been thinking about my future too, I said, sipping water. A lot, actually. That's great, she chirped. Maybe now you'll be more open to what we talked about. Oh, I'm very open, I said warmly. In fact, I even brought you a gift. Ryan paused mid-bite. Madison blinked rapidly. A gift? Yes, for all your care and concern. I gestured to the box in the center. Her eyes darted to it like a crow spotting something shiny. Ah, Grace, you didn't have to. I insist, I said. Open it. She pulled the box toward herself, fingers trembling slightly. At 6:39 p.m., she untied the ribbon, clumsy, nervous, and lifted the lid. Inside lay the printed documents, the USB, and the top sheet, a still image from the camera footage. Her face drained of color so quickly Ryan gasped. What's that? He asked. She swallowed. Hard. I don't know, maybe she. Press play, I said. Ryan slid the USB into his MacBook Air, clicked the file, and up on the screen appeared Madison, last night, smiling as she wrapped hair around my ladle. No filters, no excuses, just truth. At 6:41 p.m., Ryan whispered, Madison, what is this? She panicked instantly, hands flapping like a malfunctioning windmill. It's a joke, a prank. I was being silly. Planting hair in my mother's food? Ryan snapped. Silly. It was for content, she cried. I needed drama. I choked on air. For content? I echoed. So I'm, what, a prop? She turned to me, desperate. Grace, please, I didn't mean anything. Before I could speak, Ryan slammed his hand on the table. You humiliated her. You tried to convince me she was losing her mind. He clicked open the next file, Whitaker's summary of the will. Madison's mouth dropped open. Oh, I said gently. And here's the part where your plan collapses. No, Ryan. Listen, I was just trying to help. You tried to push my mother into a retirement home so you could take over the house? He yelled. She sputtered. I just wanted us to have a better life. You wanted yourself to have a better life, he shot back. At 6:48 p.m., she broke. Tears, mascara streaks, dramatic gasps like a theater kid who'd been rejected from Broadway. I can explain. You won't need to, I said. Everything you did is right there, and if needed, I'll share it with the proper authorities. Elder abuse isn't a joke. Madison froze like I had slapped her with the IRS. Ryan pushed back his chair. Get out. What? Ryan, you heard me, he said quietly, shaking. Leave. At 6:55 p.m. she grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door, muttering curses, accusations, and conspiracy theories that didn't even make sense. When the door slammed shut, the house went silent. Ryan turned to me, eyes filled with guilt. Mom, I'm so sorry, I didn't see what she was doing. I placed my hand on his arm. At 6:57 p.m. he whispered, broken, Can you forgive me? My throat tightened, but not from pain this time, from love. We'll figure it out, I said softly, and we would. Tomorrow would bring chaos. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt free. By 8:12 a.m. the next morning, the house felt unnaturally quiet. The kind of quiet that follows an explosion. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of Starbucks Ryan had placed there before rushing to work. He didn't say much before leaving, but the look he gave me said everything. I see you now. I'm with you now. It was enough. I was stirring my tea when the front door swung open at 8:19 a.m. Madison barged in, mascara smeared, hair unbrushed, holding a stack of papers like a malfunctioning real estate agent. I need to talk to Ryan, she demanded. He's already gone, I said calmly. She stomped into the kitchen, slamming the papers on the table. Well then, you need to fix this. He threw me out, Grace. Threw me out, he's overreacting. I lifted an eyebrow. Overreacting? You staged a culinary crime scene in my soup. It was one prank. 3, I corrected. I counted. She threw her hands up. Whatever. Look, my image is everything. If people find out about this, I'll lose collaborations, sponsorships, my brand. You mean your reputation for authenticity? I asked sweetly. She hissed. Stop being smug. I need you to tell Ryan you don't want to press charges. I haven't mentioned charges. Yet, she snapped. And there it was. The fear. At 8:26 a.m., she shoved a form toward me. A mutual non-disclosure agreement, she said. You sign this, and I'll leave you alone. You don't tell anyone what I did. I glanced at the papers, poorly written, full of typos, probably drafted by a YouTuber who thought contracts were just long captions. No, I said simply. She blinked. No? Why not? Because silence is how people like you get away with things. She froze. Not guilt, fear. Grace, she whispered, leaning in. If you expose me, I'll expose you. I paused. Expose me for what? Drinking chamomile tea at 8 p.m.? No, she said with a vicious smile. I'll tell people you're unstable. I'll go online and say you hallucinated everything, that the footage was edited. I'll ruin your name. I actually laughed. Oh, sweetheart, I was already alive before the internet. Trust me, you can't ruin me with filters and hashtags. At 8:31 a.m., a loud knock hit the door. Madison jumped. I opened it. Standing there was Mr. Whitaker, holding a folder, and next to him, a city officer from Elder Protection Services. Madison blanched. Why? Why is he here? I stepped aside. Because your actions fit the legal definition of elder psychological abuse. The officer entered calmly. Ma'am, we'd like to ask you a few questions. Madison shook her head violently. No, this is insane. I didn't do anything. Whitaker opened the folder. Inside was the printed transcript of her recorded whispers and footage descriptions. I believe, Whitaker said smoothly, that your attempt to relocate Grace against her will, paired with staged incidents designed to make her appear unfit, qualifies as coercive abuse. At 8:36 a.m., Madison completely unraveled. This is all her fault, she screamed. She's ruining my life, that old woman. The officer raised a hand. Ma'am, stop right there. Madison froze again, mouth half open, like a buffering video. We can handle this in 2 ways, the officer said. You can cooperate and provide a statement, or we can escalate this as a formal investigation. Madison panicked so hard her voice cracked. I'll cooperate. Of course she would. Influencers don't survive scandals, they vaporize in them. By 9:12 a.m., after giving a shaky statement, she stormed out of the house yelling, This isn't over. It really is, I called after her. You just didn't read the terms and conditions. The officer smiled faintly. Whitaker chuckled outright. The house fell quiet again at 9:18 a.m. I exhaled, slow, shaky, relieved. Then I heard a soft knock at the back door. Leo. He peeked in with a grin. I heard yelling and police voices and dramatic exit footsteps. Did I miss the finale? I smiled. You missed nothing. It was mostly bad acting. He stepped inside, hands in pockets. So, you okay? I think I'm more than okay, I said. I'm finally getting my home back, my life back. He nodded. Then with the gentlest tone he added, and maybe after tonight you can start building something new. My chest warmed, dangerously, beautifully. At 9:22 a.m. I whispered, maybe I already have. He smiled, slow, soft, unmistakably hopeful. Justice wasn't fully served yet. Madison would face more consequences. But the shift had started, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the future pulling me forward instead of pushing me out. By 4:15 p.m. that afternoon, the house felt lighter, as if the walls themselves were relieved. Madison no longer screamed insults into them. The elder protection officer had filed an initial report. Whitaker had left with a stack of documents, and I was finally breathing like a woman who had stepped out of a trap. At 4:22 p.m., Ryan returned home. He looked exhausted. Tie crooked, hair mussed, guilt written all over him like a confession note. Mom, he said softly, stepping into the living room, breathe, can we talk? I closed the book I'd been pretending to read on my Kindle. Yes, I answered. He sat across from me, elbows on his knees. I talked to Madison. Did she blame me for global warming? He cracked a small, shaky laugh. Close. She said you manipulated the footage. I snorted. If I knew how to edit video like that, I'd be living in Manhattan making TikToks about my dog. He sobered again. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't see how far she was taking things. I thought she was stressed. I thought you two were just clashing. You didn't want to see, I corrected gently. There's a difference. He swallowed hard. You're right. At 4:31 p.m., he wiped at his eyes like a little boy caught crying during a baseball game. I should have protected you. I should have stood up to her. I just didn't want more conflict. I leaned forward, touched his hand. Ryan, being a good husband doesn't mean being a bad son. You're allowed to tell your partner when they've crossed a line. Especially when that line is, framing your mother as unsanitary. He laughed, truly laughed for the first time in days. I deserve that. Multiple times, I said. He squeezed my hand. I'm here now. And that was enough for me. By 5:08 p.m., Madison's downfall had begun to ripple through the digital world like a stone through still water. She posted a tearful Instagram story claiming she was being bullied by negative energy, but her followers weren't buying it. One even commented, "Girl, we saw you sprinkle hair like Parmesan." Stop. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my Kindle. At 5:27 p.m., Whitaker called. Grace, just updating you, he said. Madison's behavior meets the threshold for an official elder abuse review. She's looking at fines, mandatory counseling, possibly community service. Community service? I repeated. Does hair handling count? Whit chuckled. Not legally. He also confirmed something else. If Madison tried anything further, harassment, threats, slander, she could face criminal consequences. Justice, served with a side salad. At 6:03 p.m., the back door opened quietly. Leo. He stepped inside with 2 plates covered in foil. Didn't want you cooking tonight, he said. Brought dinner. What is it? I asked. Steak from this place by the river? Don't ask the price. I'm pretending I didn't see it. My heart warmed, my stomach growled, my soul considered marrying the steak. We sat in the dining room, just the two of us. I hadn't had a quiet dinner with a man in years. Decades, even. At 6:18 p.m., he reached for the wine. Red okay? Yes, I said. But only if it doesn't make me confess crimes, he grinned. Well then, I'll pour extra. We ate, talked, laughed, about aging, about grief, about dating apps for seniors. He told me he once tried one and matched with a woman who only messaged him pictures of her cats wearing outfits. I nearly snorted wine out my nose. At 6:40 p.m., he grew quieter. Grace, he said softly, you've had a hard year, a hard month, hell, a hard week. But I want you to know, you handled everything with more strength than anyone I know. And with illegal levels of sarcasm, I added. That too, he smiled. But listen, you didn't deserve what she did. You deserve someone who respects you. Someone who chooses you. My pulse skipped. And, he added, someone who would very much like to take you on that dinner date we talked about. I inhaled sharply. Leo, no rush. No pressure, he said. Just, if you're ready for a new chapter, I'd be honored to be part of it. At 6:47 p.m., for the first time since my husband passed, I felt something fragile and wonderful. Possibility. I reached across the table, touched his hand. I whispered, I'm ready. He smiled, not wide, not bold, just real. And I realized something. Madison thought she was ending my life. Instead, she accidentally opened the door to a new one. A life with boundaries, a life with respect, a life with love, not loud and desperate, but warm, chosen, and steady. At 6:55 p.m., Leo squeezed my hand gently. "To new beginnings," he said. "To new beginnings," I echoed, and for the first time in a long, long time, I believed them. 6 months later, at 9:12 a.m., sunlight spilled across my kitchen the way hope used to spill across my life. Quiet, gentle, unexpected. The house was mine again, not just legally, emotionally. No more whispered insults, no more staged disasters, no more walking on eggshells in the place I had built with my husband. Just peace. Just breath. Just me. Well, not just me. At 9:18 a.m. I heard Leo's familiar knock at the back door, 2 taps, then 1. I smiled. "Come in," I called. He stepped in with his usual grin and a paper bag. "Breakfast delivery," he said. "I stopped by that little bakery in town. Got you those almond croissants you pretend not to love." I put a hand to my chest. I would never pretend. Leo set the bag down and kissed my cheek. 6 months ago I would have blushed myself into cardiac arrest. Now it still made my stomach flip, just a little, just enough to feel alive. At 9:23 a.m., we sat at the table sharing croissants and coffee. He looked around the kitchen approvingly. "You've really made this place brighter," he said. "So have you," I replied without thinking. He blinked, then smiled slowly. "I'll take that." We ate in companionable silence for a moment, the kind that only happens with people who see each other clearly. Later that morning, at 10:05 a.m., Ryan stopped by with my granddaughter, Lily. She came running into my arms like she was auditioning for an Olympic hugging event. "Grandma, guess what? I wrote a story for school and you're the main character." "Oh, really?" I laughed. "What kind of story?" "A superhero one." She held up her notebook proudly. "You have silver hair and a magic ladle." Leo choked on his coffee. "Well," I said, "that's surprisingly accurate." Ryan hugged me quietly after Lily ran to the backyard. "Mom," he said softly, "I'm proud of you. You've handled everything with more grace than I ever could have." Grace, my name, and something I had finally grown into. I squeezed his hand. "I'm proud of you too, Ryan. You faced the truth. That's never easy." He nodded. "I'm in therapy now, trying to work on, well, everything." "That's good," I said. "We all need to unlearn things." We stood there a moment, mother and son, rebuilding something we had let slip through our fingers. At 10:21 a.m., he said goodbye and left with Lily, promising to come for dinner on Friday. By noon, Leo and I were on our way to the riverfront for lunch. The sky was bright, the breeze soft, the day easy in a way my life hadn't been in years. We walked along the boardwalk hand in hand. "You know," Leo said at 12:06 p.m., "you're a different woman than the one I met 7 months ago." "Older?" I teased. "Stronger," he corrected. "Lighter, happier, and maybe a little sassier." "I've always been sassy." "True," he admitted, "but now you use your powers for good." He wasn't wrong. Healing doesn't erase scars, it just makes them beautiful. We reached the small restaurant by the river, the one with fairy lights strung above the patio and a view that made the water sparkle like a postcard. The waiter seated us outside. Leo held up his glass. "To peace," he said. "To boundaries," I added. "To starting again." "To choosing who we become," I said softly. He touched his glass to mine and to magic ladles. I laughed so loudly the couple next to us jumped. Later, around 1:28 p.m., as we walked back to the car, Leo wrapped an arm around me. "Grace," he said quietly. "Yes? I know life changed a lot for you, and I know stepping into something new can be scary. But I want you to know, I'm here for the long run, if you want me." I looked up at him, this kind, stubborn, gentle man who showed up when I thought my life was shrinking. "Leo," I whispered, "I want the long run too." He kissed my forehead, simple, soft, perfect. And in that moment, with the sun warm on my back, the river glittering, the world finally quiet, I realized something. Madison thought she was pushing me out of my life, but what she really did was push me into a better one. A life where I was seen, a life where I was loved, a life where I chose joy over fear, and a future that felt beautifully, unapologetically mine.